lovelies. Today we are taking a look at Last Rites. This is the 1988 film starring Tom Berenger and Daphne Zuniga. And I'm going to be honest, I enjoyed the film a lot more on the second viewing. The first time I watched it, I did not care for it. It seems to lag. It even lags in some points. But for the most part, I was able to enjoy it this time. I thought it was a fairly decent film, or maybe I was just able to view it with different eyes this time, who knows. But it's a fairly interesting film. It opens up with Father Michael, played by Tom Berenger, who is taking confession, and he has a young girl in the booth. And I thought this was a cute little opening scene. The girl confesses to the father that she does not like her older sister making her have to clean the toilets. So in order to get even with her sister, she uses her older sister's toothbrush and asks the father if this is a sin. And the father kind of takes a moment. He's kind of smiling to himself, and he asks her, "No, not really, but tell me something. Do you guys use the same cup or the same glass for your toothbrushes?" And of course the young girl responds, "Yes, why?" A brief pause. "Oh, Father." So yeah, I don't think she really had to do any penance. I think she kind of took care of that herself. But it's a cute little film. I thought that scene was fun. Let me rephrase that. It's a cute little scene. But our following scene, we have him meeting up with a friend at a restaurant, and I notice that there's a ring on his finger, and my first thought is, of course, because he's a priest, my first thought is, well, I wonder if it's symbolic that he's married to the church, very much like a nun. If I don't know if they wear rings for the same reason. To my understanding, Catholic priests did not wear jewelry, but I could be mistaken, or it could just be a personal choice. Who really knows? But that's really one of the things that kind of just stuck out and caught my interest, but not really relevant to the scene. But it is what it is. It's just one of the things I just happened to notice. So the whole deal with this film, cutting to the chase here, is that Father Michael happens to have ties with the mafia. His father is a Don. His sister Zena happens to be married to a man named Gino, who happens to be having an extramarital affair, and she is not very pleased with this, so she takes matters into her own hands and does away with her husband. And unfortunately, she just cannot get her hands on that pesky mistress. She just will not come out of the bathroom. She's just naked and hiding in there, and it's kind of like too late for modesty, but oh well. But this woman, Angela, she winds up going to the same church where Father Michael practices, and we find out later this is not by design. Gino had mentioned Michael, and she essentially is asking him for help. When she finds out that he is related to the murderess, the wife Gina, she kind of freaks out and wants to hightail out of it. She just did not realize that there was a connection between the family names. Obviously his name is pronounced differently, I imagine, because religious reasons. He wants some sort of some form of separation. I can't blame him for that one. But her reaction is priceless, and really it isn't too long before she's holed up there in the church and pretty much just granted sanctuary. And gradually Father Michael, Tom Berenger, he winds up falling in love with her. This is pretty obvious. He just kind of looks at her certain ways. He sneaks into the room where she is sleeping and just observes her resting. And he has somewhat of a fantasy, if you will. I don't think I really need to go into detail here, but a chaste priest and a naked woman in a bed. One can only imagine where such fantasies would go, yeah? Yeah. But obviously nothing doing, and this is more of a daydream of his. One of the things that did strike me as odd later on in this film is there's a different scene where he's visiting with her, and he happens to be getting dressed for his priestly duties, and he's just kind of standing around in like this sexy priest getup. He's got his slacks on, he's got his suspenders over, barely covering his male mammary glands, and it's like, good lordy, man, have some modesty. But I don't know if he's just that comfortable around her, or if he's flirting with her. I don't know what the deal is here, but it's interesting to me because obviously Xena is very much on the heels of this woman. She still wants her vengeance, and you know, what woman scorned wouldn't. But it's in a scene early in the film where Father Michael is taken to an artist loft where Angela is hiding, and the mafia goons show up, and they're still trying to kill her. They realize that she's not alone, someone's there, and they just happen to get away. And a thing that we do observe is that there are portraits or paintings of her throughout this room that this artist fellow has made of her, and this winds up being very important towards the end of the film, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So they narrowly escape with their lives, and it's really not until the next scene where Father Michael is attending Gino's funeral that someone realizes it was Michael that was at the loft. So now there's obviously this conflict of interest. You have this religious figure who is also a family member who knows what's going on, and he's kind of in the way, and they can't do anything to him because he's family, but they still want to get their hands on this pesky home-wrecking woman. It isn't long before Father Michael decides to flee with her to Mexico, her homeland, in order to ensure her safety. The assumption is, of course, that if she were to leave on her own, she probably wouldn't get too far, and she is disguised as a male priest. This is how they get her out of the building, and then of course she and Father Michael drive across the border, and this is kind of where we kind of get the double cross. We realize Angela really isn't exactly who all she says she is, and that she's pretty much being dishonest on multiple counts. So we find out that she had her own ulterior motives when she was prancing around with Gino, and big surprise, the answer is usually money. But would you really want to get yourself in this situation where you've got this high stakes thing going on? Did she really love Gino, or was she actually with him for the money? Monetary gain is my assumption here, especially because we find out that Angela is a married woman. She's married to this artist chap, and they're fairly well off on their own. They really didn't need to cook up this scheme, but they do this thing, and Michael, who has now fallen in love with her and has broken his vows in the process, so he's in a sticky spot here to, follow the church, obey his vows, honor his vows correction, and stay in good standing with his own family. So he's in a very sticky, tight spot here, and he ultimately has to make a choice. But I really don't want to spoil the end of the film. It's definitely somewhat of a crime thriller type genre. The acting's good. It's just there's something about the film that falls flat that I really wasn't too crazy about. This one doesn't really seem to have as much substance as some of the other films that we have looked at, and I don't know if it was just some shameless cash pull of just kind of like the whole shock of the priest breaking his vows, or just the whole sex appeal of Daphne Zuniga, or if they were just banking on numerous things, but something in the film falls flat. I mean, the writing is decent. It has good dialogue. I have no complaints about the acting at all, but it does. It's just very slow, and something about it, I can't really put my finger on it. I don't like the movie. It had potential to be very good, and I enjoyed it a lot more the second viewing that I did upon the initial watch, but there's still something there that just doesn't quite hit the mark. If you guys have seen the film, I would love to discuss this further with you. Tell me about what you didn't like about the film. Maybe we can just figure it out together. What in the world is wrong with this movie? But it had a lot of promise. It has a good cast. I don't know. I cannot figure this one out. I wanted to like this one. It wasn't in the cards, but my confusion aside, my disappointment aside, that's pretty much all I have for you guys for today, and I will talk to you later.